This is the Hello World podcast, where we talk about habits of success, habits of excellence, entrepreneurship, leadership, learning and development, and outlook that will help us succeed through life. This is Louis Banta, CEO and Chief Trainer of Learning Just Made Better, or LJMB. And this is episode 18 of the Hello World podcast. Our guest in episode 18, an episode on entrepreneurship, will talk about a startup founder's story, how to successfully start, grow, and pivot your startup. Our guest is co-founder and space captain at Cajon.ph, the first tech-enabled end-to-end storage solution startup in the Philippines, where they deliver storage to anyone, anywhere, to help clients make space for what matters. As the Chief People Officer, our guest is responsible for preserving the company culture and values, overseeing talent management and development, recruitment, HR policies, and wellness programs. Today, he will talk about his startup founder's story. Our guest, Nick Padilla.
Hello, world.
Thank you, Nick, for gracing us here in the Hello World podcast with your presence.
Thank you for having me.
You're co-founder and, as indicated here, space captain of Cajon.ph. First thing that caught my attention here is space captain. Tell us more about Space Captain, Nick, and how it may be related to you and Cajon.ph being the first full-service storage company in the Philippines.
Yeah, I get that question a lot. Well, I'm a marketer by trade. So when I was creating Cajon with my co-founder, Carlos, we realized that storage wasn't the sexiest thing to market, or it wasn't the sexiest thing to brand ourselves with. And as we thought about it, we realized that storage wasn't really the final product, but the space that you're provided, the space that you use, whether you're renovating, whether you're storing stuff so that you can make space for, a family or anything like that. And so we really embraced the idea of space being our final product. And so we called management the space captains, the ones leading the ship. And then we have our space makers who are, the regular, everything from field ops to our finance to our marketing. And then we have our own space cadet program, which we utilize interns from various schools so that they can also kind of get a learning. We have several of them that actually join our team. So that's been a very good recruitment program that we have going. But yeah, space captain, I think what really helps us also is kind of create these discussions, because people want to understand what we do. And by explaining that we give you space for what matters, makes it easier for people to understand that they need storage or that they need to declutter in their lives.
Sounds cool talking about space and hearing space captain. I would think of Star Trek and all Star Wars, but it's actually not space as in deep space, but
No.
as you mentioned, making space or offering space for what really matters, which is at the core of your business. So, Nick, how does the business work? I saw in the website 3 steps. You pick up stuff that people want to store, then you
Yes.
store it in your space, and then you return it when they need it. Yes. So who are the usual clients, and what's the range of stuff that people want Cajon.ph to store?
When we started, it was majority B2C. Well, till now it's majority B2C, but we're seeing a rise in our B2B clients and inquiries. A lot of when we started it out, I thought it was going to be all condo dwellers, people who needed that space. Space in condos are becoming a luxury now and then. And we do see that. We have, condo dwellers storing all kinds of stuff. But what we've seen now is that it's really anyone, whether they're renovating their home, whether they're fixing a space so that they can work from home. And it's storing stuff that they don't need right now. For instance, we have a lot of people who store winter wear, or they'll store, if you believe it or not, we have a lot of wedding dresses stored. Wedding dresses, yearbooks, maletas that families have 10, different types of maletas. We have a lot of those. And then on, the business side, because BIR requires people to store or archive their documents for what, 5, 10 years, that works in our favor because we're able to store it. And if they need it for any purpose, we can return it to them. So we have a wide range of clientele. We have a wide range of storage stuff. And that's why we try to partner with different warehouses or warehouse facilities so that we can service a wider variety. We're able to scale with the demand as it comes to us. And so that's really been something that um, we're always looking at. We're always seeing what are the use cases and what
Mhm.
people need, right? Is it really furniture? Is it really document storage? Is it really those valuables, whether it's paintings and et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera? Unfortunately, we don't store paintings. It's too expensive, but
Risky.
we
Yeah.
want to see what are the pain points for people in terms of storage so that
Mhm.
we can see if we can address it and is it something that we can further scale.
Okay. You raised a lot of important points there. I guess initially your target customers are the condo unit occupants, yes, because um, for obvious
Yes.
reasons that they may lack space. And then it now expanded to B2B, from B2C to B2B.
Right.
And interesting that people entrust their sentimental items, right? And even wedding
Yeah.
dresses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's interesting. What I tell my team internally, because like I mentioned to you a while ago, our product is not storage, it's space. But what I tell my team, our product is not storage, it's space. But in reality, it's trust. We sell trust. Because people are gonna not just pay us, but they're also gonna give us their valuables. And so our service is really anchored on that, developing that trust, investing in their storage problems, and really helping you make whatever space you need, whether it's temporary or more for the long term.
I like talking about these three words. It's the philosophy of the business. I know that
Mhm.
you're marketer by profession, Nick. So I understand why we really have to go beyond the product itself, from storage to space. And then come to think of it, the people that who really give you these items, no, would entrust it to cajon.ph first time that they might see you in the website or in Facebook. Yes, they'd call you for
Yeah,
something that they have been keeping for the longest time. And I was able to relate to what you said earlier. B2B businesses, we
right.
would need space for a lot of documents. I shared
Yeah,
with you before this podcast that we're also searching for somebody to entrust our yes, documents, a lot of other items too, given our office transfer in the last few weeks. What was
yeah.
that trigger? What was that big push that led you and Carlos really go and say, let's start Cajon.ph?
Well, I actually had known of the business model back by around 2013. I saw it in New York and in San Francisco. So I knew enough about real estate that this is something that would work here. But I don't know anything about logistics and warehousing. So I sat on the idea for some time. And then in 2016, I bumped into Carlos in Belair. I was getting burnt out in corporate. And when I talked to him, I realized where he was telling me about how his family business is logistics and storage, and they've been doing it for 40 years. And he had the same vision as what I had seen, just on the storage side. He wanted to innovate a traditional model that's been working over time and kind of make it digitized. On my end, I knew that space was a luxury, and this is something that we could market and create. And so from there, it started off as sort of drunken talk, and then it developed into something real as we kind of talked about it some more and some more. Literally, our wives thought it wasn't going to lead to anything, and then we just became more obsessed with it, and then it got to a point where I met his family. I went to the warehouse, and we were able to convince them to give us a 20 square meter room in one of their warehouses to prove the concept.
You started
And
with a 20
lo and
square
behold,
meter room.
yeah, started there, and to date we're at over 2,000 square meters managed already. So that's like 7 facilities. So the growth has been tremendous, and it's really when we saw that room fill up that Carlos and I were like, okay, yeah, this isn't a part time thing. This is something that we can do. Let's go all in. And so that's when we really got things going. We that at the time I was working for Rockwell, so I resigned from Rockwell to kind of just go all in on this one, and that's really what was the turning point for us. Let's invest our time and our effort here and see if we can really make a startup that will make a difference or that will really last.
So you did not know Carlos before. I suppose you said you bumped into each other in Baler on a surfing
We Yeah, it
vacation,
was
I
a surf
suppose.
trip, but we knew each other from Ateneo. So we were both from Ateneo. We
Okay.
had common friends, but we weren't we hadn't really had any real discussion over, what do we do for a living. So it had been some time and we weren't really close, but that one meeting had the snowball going. It had us really discussing things, and that's what led to Kohon now.
Again, the topic is the story of a startup entrepreneur. And take a look at this, addressing our listeners in this episode. You don't expect it. You meet somebody who may just compliment. Is that the best way to put it, Nick? Right? The
Yes.
best person who may
Yes.
compliment. You had that idea, right? You don't know how to articulate it or
Yeah.
execute it. Here comes along in that kilometers away from where you may have
Yeah.
first met in Ateneo, where the idea of this the idea has been born, and two people just manage to synergize strengths. And
Yeah.
Nick, just sharing in a workshop that I was delivering 3 weeks ago, I was talking about in a book of Jim Collins. Jim Collins is the author of Good to Great, and he was talking about
Yeah.
fire bullets first before cannonballs. Innovative companies are not necessarily successful because they're innovative. They fire a bullet first. They pilot an experiment. They don't dive into it with all of their resources. And when it succeeds, that they scale it. And when you're talking about that story, Nick,
Yes.
20 square foot meter space now to 2,000 just reminded me again that great companies know how to scale and to be creative. They are creative and innovative, but in a disciplined manner. So just
Yeah.
somehow felt that when you were talking about you started first and then
Yeah. I mean, it was really something that Carlos, we didn't have a lot of capital or anything, right? We had the effort that we could put into it. And so we really tried till now, we've remained super asset light. Um, and, that's allowed us to really kind of pivot and study and, do the right things. And so building a minimum viable product, proving that it works, and that there's potential market for it rather than just going all in for the sake of it. Um, I guess really guided us and kind of formed the way we want to run the company and the way we want to move forward with storage as a solution really.
and just wanted to know how it works. Is there an app? Do they order in the website, or is there an app that they can
Mm.
use? Perhaps to check status, check how are my goods being
Yeah.
stored. How does it work? Nick?
So a lot of people always ask us if we have an app, but I'm kind of the one. I guess I'm one of the few people that don't really believe in apps. So we have a website. It's completely mobile friendly, and then you have your own personal dashboard where you're able to check your items. You can pick which items you want returned. If they're with you, then it will showcase that they're actually in your possession. Then if they pick it up, once we tag it, it'll show up as in our warehouse. Um, the reason why we don't have an app is I really believe that if you're going to invest that much money in an app, it has to feel like they're hacking. They have to use it on a day-to-day basis. But if it's
Mhm.
storage, it's really out of sight, out of mind. People are storing in the bodega mindset here in the Philippines. So it's not like Hong Kong where a similar business model, people will store their bikes or their rain gear because the weather's so accurate, they're able to, think ahead and pull it out. Here, people are storing, again, like I said, maletas, yearbooks,
Mhm.
right?
For long
It's not
term,
something that's going to have, yeah, long term. So really out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And so we don't really believe that, you're not going to use an app on the regular. You just need something that will work effectively on a phone or on a website and be able to pick which items you need returned to you or which items you need picked up and stored. And so that's really the main thing. But we also like to call ourselves a storage concierge service. So if that doesn't work for you, you can call a space maker and we'll figure out what you need. And we'll work with whatever channels you give us. The website is there, but at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is just solve your storage needs. So however you need to get in contact with us, that's we're there for you.
You just mentioned out of sight, out of mind. In 4 years, so has it happened that any client has ever even forgotten that they stored something?
I think, well, one of our very first clients stored her wedding dress with us, and she's still with us till now. Um, so she's actually, I think it was after year one when she got, we just sent her a letter saying thanks for storing with us, and she's just like, oh wow, I had no, I completely forgot about it, and so it's those kind of things, right? Those things where I think people will forget it. It's obviously the business clients don't forget it because it's documents or office equipment or kitchen equipment. But I think on the personal level, if they're not renovating their house and they're storing for long term, it's really forgotten. So we do have clients who ask us to, like, okay, I don't need it anymore. Would you be willing to dispose of it, or can you help me dispose of it? Once they kind of get to a certain point of, oh yeah, I had that in storage, pala. And so we've partnered with Humble Sustainability, another startup that sort of acts as a pawn shop, and we're able to kind of put some items, work with them to kind of resell it or repurpose them or upcycle them for better use.
Now we're not just talking about picking up, storing it, and returning it, but you just mentioned that in cases when the client has no need for the item anymore, you also do that for them, and that in itself is an opportunity. And look at that, you're also able to give this to that
Yeah,
other partner. So it's an ecosystem, Nick,
yeah.
right?
I
You're
mean,
part of an ecosystem now.
correct. That's what Carlos and I always envisioned, right? Creating that ecosystem where we're able to not just store your needs, but we always wanted an ability to, if you stored it and then you're like, you don't want it, let there be a donate button so you're able to indicate it, and then we kind of do that. So we wanted to be able to not just store your items, but also let you choose what to do with your items. So it's not a real product that we have. It's something that we're exploring. And as we continue to see if it's a real pain point, then we have the right partners to be able to kind of scale it up further. So we're always looking for those opportunities. We're always looking for partners who can actually complete that ecosystem and really help our clients go beyond just their storage needs, but whatever needs they have in terms of the items that they have in our possession.
Really getting to understand the business better so that, of
Mm.
course, our listeners who may have their space needs can
Yeah,
reach out to kahon.ph. Just a thought occurred to me right now. Time and space are two of the most expensive, I'd say, needs or resources that we have. Time as an expensive resource, and space too as an expensive resource. Take a look at that, and you're able to
I like
address
that.
uh, address people's needs related to these. And that was the first part, Nick, was us getting to better understand the business, also for prospective clients out there, B2C or B2B. Now let's focus
Hmm.
more on the journey of the startup founder. Um, what was easy and what was tough in the 4 years that you were building this business?
What was easy was probably building the logo. Coming from marketing, I was really inspired in building the logo and the colors and the initial website and all of that. That was
Mhm.
probably the easiest part. Everything after that has been a grind and a challenge. There's been so many mistakes. I'm a firm believer in you have to make mistakes in order to learn, right? I don't believe in winning or losing. Every loss is a opportunity to learn. So that's something that we've kind of done. We've really made so many mistakes and learned from it. Looking back, there's a lot of things that we'd probably do differently, but it's been tough, but it's been very fruitful, right? Putting in the blood, sweat, and tears really kind of it engages you to have that passion to kind of work a little bit extra to develop that team, to make sure that the team is getting the bigger picture. Um, it's hard in a startup when you don't have a clear path to success for the employees, right? In corporate, you jump in and you know that you're going from point A to point B, but it can get very murky in startups. So, to have that drive every day to guide, the 15, 16 people that we have, um, is something that has been a challenge, but has been something that's the most rewarding for me. And so I think that's something that continues to challenge me all the time. But everything is a challenge in a startup. I think, but at this end of the day, right now, it's all good problems to have. It's all about scaling. It's all about growing. It's all about improving. So it's good and challenging, but good.
You mentioned we learned from our mistakes. That's actually at this the spirit or core of agile. Being agile, we used that word so many times nowadays. What was the best two mistakes, Nick, of Cajon.ph? Or what's your best two mistakes that really became a big
Best,
aha moment that really gave you a lot of lessons?
I think. Well, one, when we started the business, when I saw it in the U.S., Hong Kong, Singapore, they were very focused on box storage or single item storage. That's why we called it Cajon, right? So a local version of that. And honestly, when so we ended up investing on several of the boxes to be used, but it turns out that Filipinos don't understand or aren't really, yeah, they don't really resonate with item storage, single item storage, or that it's bodega
Bulk.
style, right? Bulk. It's all of that. Filipinos are hoarders in by nature, right? So that's why we had to pivot, and we created by the item what we call Cajon and Cuarto, which is by the square meter now. Um, we needed to create something where people can scale their footprint. They go by square meter rather than just per item. And once we
Mm.
did that, things started rolling. That's when we were able to fill up the 20 square meter. That's when we were able to get other partners. So I think that one was a big mistake. It was a costly mistake. But we were able to see that the importance of market research, and also getting to know who are we targeting. Had we spent some time in the initial times really figuring out, okay, what would you store? And then we would find out that none of that can fit in the box. We wouldn't have invested that much there. So after that, we became a lot more data driven, and more looking at, okay, what are the customers telling us rather than just working off of assumptions. And I think that was one of the crucial ones that really stood out, um, for me. And then the second one actually was when we started growing. um, it's actually, I was in Alibaba Business School, and when I was learning about the growth of Alibaba, um, I saw that they really had a moment where they had to have people focus on culture and the values and everything. And this was happening kind of at a time where Carlos and I were very stretched thin, and we were working on
Mm.
so many things, whether it was marketing, partnerships, operations, but HR values and culture was something missing. So when I came back and kind of talked to the team about it, they were like, yeah, it feels different. It feels like like you're more focused on the shareholders. And so we started telling everyone that, okay, the way this works, the way Cajon works is, it's customers first, space makers second, and then the shareholders, right? So they understand that they're just as important, if not more important, than the shareholders. And I feel like that was a big mistake on our part. It was a few months of us so ultra focused on the bigger picture, and innovating and improving operations and everything, that we weren't really spending time just marketing and spending time with the biggest asset, which is our space makers and our team. And so
Mm.
that was a rude awakening that I think happened at a timely point, because when COVID hit, we were able to kind of shift gears, and we had someone, myself, I was able to focus on the team and all of that. So I think those were the two pivotal mistakes, if anything, or
Mm.
hurdles that we had to overcome.
The business has been there for 4 years. When did you
Yeah.
start focusing on people and culture? When did this awakening in Alibaba school led you back to the team and
Mhm.
say, okay, I want to be CPO so I can take care of preserving the culture, or codifying it first before preserving it? When did
Yeah.
it happen?
I think well, I was in, gosh, I think it was this time last year that I was in,
Okay.
yeah, this time last year, I was in Alibaba. And so I came back a little bit after. It was like around Christmas time, and then come January, that's when Carlos and I were talking. So I was there for maybe 2 weeks in China, and during that time, I had really no time to kind of be a part of operations and everything. And so Carlos and I, as we were talking, we realized that he was becoming this singular voice in terms of direction, in terms of business development, in terms of this is what he envisions for the logistics, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so we ran with that. We're like, okay, you continue being that voice, and this is what I think we need to do. We need to kind of rework our core values to be something that people will remember. And it's not just saying, oh yeah, we do integrity, oh yeah, we're customer centric, but actually having a formula to it, actually organizing it in a way that people know it, actually hiring space makers or candidates based off of those things. What's their
Mm-hmm.
ability or what's the probability of them meeting certain values? And so that was really when, I think, around January, February, a little bit before COVID, it's when we were discussing it. And then when COVID came and the lockdown, I really super just ran with it. That's when I started doing, like, on Thursdays we have a wellness huddle where everyone gets together. We'll do Among Us, or we'll do yoga, but it's nothing work related. It's really just a wellness check, right? So these are all activities that I started doing during the lockdown, kind of seeing how everyone was doing, what were they grateful for, what were they worried about, how we could help out, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that that lockdown was really what switched me to really focus on the people and make sure that they're okay, and that way the company's okay.
There were a lot of thoughts in my head when you were talking about the, those realizations. One would be, while you used it as an answer to the mistakes or big mistakes earlier. I believe it's the natural course of any startup or any business. You create customers first, and you become operational on your focus. Then later on, somebody just realizes that we have to look long term, and that any business, especially what you have, really depends on people, on your space makers. But congratulations, Nick and
Yeah.
Carlos, that you realized this early on, because I would have clients who would request for assistance on culture development, culture codification, and even culture transformation, even decades after they started. So, and this is the thing about culture. Um, whether you do something or not, culture will happen. Culture will evolve, right? Up to a
Right.
certain point, and perhaps you did not do it intentionally. So, what I like about what you and your partner did, Nick, 3 years when you started it, you realized that you have to focus on these two important things. And that's where my second
Yeah.
insight came in. You're playing by your strengths. And Carlos is strong on the day to day, the here and
Hmm.
now, the servicing customers. That's where his strength is. And I believe you said you're not an HR practitioner, but your heart is really on that side of the business, which should focus on, if you want this to be long term, then the space makers, which is why I also love that you have a specific term to your employees. Well, the same way that Disney would call their employees cast members. You're not just employees,
Right.
you're part of the cast, right? The same
Yeah.
way that Starbucks will call their baristas or anybody who works there a partner, right? So,
Right.
putting
Yeah.
them on that same level. You have the space makers, and yes, admirable that this early you are recognizing the value of culture and people. And you said that this focus just happened right before the pandemic. Eh? What were other
Yeah.
pivots that you had to do because of this unexpected, unprecedented COVID crisis?
Well, obviously the adopting the work from home was a major one that we had to kind of pivot and figure out. Luckily, we were able to do that in a smooth way. But I think the two major pivots was really driving our, I guess, our marketing and sales initiatives more towards B2B. As the pandemic hit, a lot of businesses obviously had to downsize, unfortunately, or they had to adjust their office spaces, right? And I think a lot of companies were going through that. And so we were seeing so many inquiries regarding these things. Um, and these were large requests. And so that's really been a big pivot for us. How to focusing energy on servicing these bigger companies, because with the bigger companies, obviously comes a different service level agreement as compared to the the customers, because these some of these items are, if it's documents for an accounting firm or a law firm, they could be very very important for them. So that was something that we had to kind of pivot and figure out, and really work with legal to kind of how do we deal with these guys. But the other one was, interestingly enough, was we started seeing an increase in, uh, how do you say it? I guess requests to see their space. We started seeing people who had badminton courts or hotel rooms, and not just warehouses, but just spaces that weren't being used during lockdown, and they couldn't really make it work. And so we've met with several and kind of seen these spaces, and see if we can either two things: come up with commercial terms that work, but also if it's something that could work in terms of storage. Is it not a risk for any items, or etc.? So that's been a very interesting pivot. Like, how do we make sure that we have a standard protocol in terms of checking out a space, looking for certain things? What are the commercial terms? Because it'll always change. And so that's been a very exciting part. Now there's so many people with space who are looking to become a part of the Cajon, I guess, network. And so it's been addressing that, kind of getting them on the Cajon network so that we can do what we do best. And that's really generating the demand, and servicing the people.
You used the word network earlier before we started. We were using the term ecosystem. You are not
Yeah.
just helping customers, but in this pandemic, indeed, any crisis turns into an opportunity. So I'd say the suppliers, should I say that, Nick? The
Yes.
space
Suppliers. Yeah.
suppliers, right? So you're now
Yes.
really bridging, just like Alibaba, just like
Yeah.
Grab or any other big big in betweens there, or a middleman there. You're now bridging the customer, whether B2C or B2B, with the space suppliers.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
I know you really have to make a lot of adjustments there. It's all part of the learning process. No, 4 years in the business.
Yes.
Now, taking a step back, Nick, from everything that happened in the 4 years, what do you like most in being a startup founder? And expect that I will also ask, what do you like least? Is there a like list?
I think what do I like most is building a team that is really kind of following a single dream. I always tell everyone that you have to dream big if you're in a startup, because if you don't, you're not going to build something that will last. And so we have a team of people who have different types of backgrounds, people who, from the field ops all the way to our marketing people, but they have that same vision. And that's something that excites me on, I guess, on a founder level, knowing that I have a team of, it was exciting when it was just one or two people, but to be able to have 16 people who believe in us and really appreciate us, and um, know what we're doing and buy in. That's something that really excites me. On a personal level, though, it's although I'm a founder and entrepreneur, I think my number one job is really being a dad. I don't have a yaya or household help, so being a founder entrepreneur, I'm able to make the time to be with my son.
Mm.
That was one of the major things that pushed me to do this. My dad was telling me, you can either be corporate, where you might have to check with the secretary to see if you're going to make it for dinner, or you can make
Mm.
sure that your meetings fall around those things. And so
Mm.
that's something that I hold really close to me, and that's an opportunity that I'll always, take when I can spend time with my son and my wife.
I can imagine that great work-life blend, right? Or life
Hmm.
and business blend that you have there.
Yeah, I
Just
like
want
that
to
blend.
commend. Yeah, it's no longer about balance, right? Because when you say
It's not.
balance,
Yeah, it's
it
blend.
stops.
That's right.
uh, Entrepreneurs are not built for that. You
No,
know that you have to pick up a call if it's a client
correct.
or an opportunity. Yeah. I know that you're a marketer by training and profession, but I really admire your focus on. I kept on hearing people. I kept on hearing team. I kept on hearing words like alignment. And yes, you still have a long way to go, but just keep your focus on these words: alignment, It doesn't happen by chance, Nick. So whatever you're doing there in the past 4 years, if you say that 16, 20 people appear to have this shared dream, there's something that you're doing. And what is
Thank
that?
you. That's
And you
awesome.
just have to keep
Thank you.
on doing that. What's your like list? If there's a like list, what would that be?
Uh, like least, what would it be?
Or you
I
can
think
skip the question if
honest.
you don't have. Okay, go.
No, it's okay. I think it's an exciting part, but it's just really hard. Is the fundraising part of it? You need money, obviously. We've been bootstrapped all the way until now, so it. I guess entertaining potential investors and dealing with all of that, it's very foreign to me, right? So to learn that and to all of a sudden work with valuations and everything. It's like going back to school where you have to learn all of it. And so I know it's part of the game, and that's I guess it's the new exciting challenge and chapter for us. Um, but it's definitely something that yeah, right now probably liking the least. But luckily enough, Carlos enjoys it. So again, we're complementing each other in that sense. I market and he just handles the commercial terms. But yeah, that's probably I'm not a big finance guy, so or I'm not good with numbers.
A good thing that Carlos is able to handle that as well. Numbers both in terms
Yeah.
of sales or operations and finance. I'm sure in the near future there could be a third component, third pillar of the business, right? If Carlos is in
Hmm.
operations, growing the business, and you are growing on people, somebody has to take care of this in the behind the scenes. What's a brutal fact that we can share to our listeners? They want to start up a business, be a founder of their own business. What's a brutal fact that they may use to consider whether they want to dive in or not?
I think the most brutal fact that I've learned in this entire you know journey is timing is everything. You can have an idea, you can have the money, you can have a team and everything, but timing is the number one factor in success. I worked in Rockwell, and we were doing. I got to be a part of like the digital team, and so we were trying stuff like it was called Hello Rockwell, where we were doing sort of like on demand services like bank checks or picking up at the groceries, right? And it was too early; people didn't like it. But if it was to be happening now, it would work. And so that's what I kind of realized, like, especially with the pandemic and seeing the increase in inquiries, timing is everything. Whether you're about to start, you have to jump at the right time. But also when, like you said, in crisis, if the opportunity presents itself, you have to jump just at the perfect moment as well. Um, One of my
What's the
mentors,
recommendation then, Nick? If timing is everything, when's the right time, especially that we may not know the future?
I think, well, a part of it is your gut. Like, do you really feel like this is it? But it goes back to my mistake where, market research. Do you know everything that you're getting into? Do you know if there's a market there or not? That was also the mistake that, I think a lot of startups make. They'll have this good
Mhm.
idea, but they don't really know if there's a market for it. And so that's why it's so important to have this minimum viable product or a proof of concept to see if it's something that you can scale, if it's something that you can kind of develop further. Because an idea is just an idea until you really kind of prove that there's someone who's willing to buy it. So I think timing and researching properly whether that timing is correct is the brutal fact.
I like the combination data. That's where your marketing background comes in, right? Market research. But you also mentioned your first answer is trusting your gut, right? Combination of both right and left brain there, data plus how do I really feel about it. If you have a piece of advice for those who are aspiring to start up their business, whether starting, growing, or pivoting, what would be your top one, two advice for them?
I think for starting and for growing, um, well, for starting, I think fail fast, learn fast. That's my biggest piece of advice. I think people are so scared of failure, especially coming from, if you just came from school or anything like that, failure is such a daunting idea, right? But failure is actually a really good opportunity to learn from your mistakes and to grow and to improve. So I think failing fast, addressing the mistakes and learning is crucial, right? So fail fast, learn fast for starting. Um, in growing your startup, always lead with. I think you have to have confidence in being self-critical. You have to really know how to nitpick yourself, know that you're making mistakes, and kind of see where you can scale from there. Because if you think you have a perfect product, you're wrong. You need to be self-critical of yourself. You need to be um, confident enough to sort of take in the bad reviews from customers or the suggestions they may have. Um, so I think that's something that has really helped us in our growth. And I think in terms of pivoting, this is something that we hold very close to us in Cohon because we've pivoted several times, and that's a mindset that we like to have. That we're agile enough to pivot when we can. Um, and I think this comes down to trusting your team. Pivots can be scary. Pivots can change direction at a breakneck speed, and not everyone can handle that. And so trusting your team to understand the bigger picture for the pivot, trusting your team to understand why you're doing it and not just saying, this is where we're going because I said so, is very important when you pivot because they need to buy into that pivot. Otherwise, you're going to have people questioning and you're going to spend so much time trying to address those questions and concerns. So trust is the most important part of any pivot for a startup or for a company, I think.
And I like hearing a lot of soft, I'd say soft elements from you. You mentioned trust. You just mentioned trust there. You started by saying it's important that we are self-critical at being at the heart of customer centricity. We get customer feedback. But even more than that, our standard should even be higher than the customer, right? Even the customer is saying, I'm happy with your
Correct.
product or service. It's us even saying we can do more. I know that we can still serve you better. So I like that, being
Yes.
able to, assess the business and assess ourselves. I also got struck with you've been doing pivots in the past
Mhm.
3 years previous to COVID. And my insight on this one, Nick, is if you're used to doing pivots, it becomes a culture. It has in the past 3 years. May have explained why you and your team have also successfully done this 2020 pivot when it mattered most. You were just
Right.
practicing
Yeah.
pivots in the first 3 years, right? And
Yeah.
that may maybe explain why it's an easy pivot for you to do this 2020. Nick, I'll
Yeah.
let
It definitely was
you talk
helpful.
to our listeners and
Mhm.
promote Cajon.ph. And yes, let us know, let our listeners know how they can reach out to you if they need space. And space, indeed, is everybody's precious need right now. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah. So yeah, everyone listening out there, Cohon.ph. You can visit us at www.cohon.ph or contact@cohon.ph. Um, we deliver storage to anyone, anywhere in the easiest way possible. And if you like good service, that's what we deliver. If you like timely service, that's what we deliver. And if you are just, if you have clutter that you need decluttered because a nice organized space just kind of gives you a nice organized mind. And in this time when you're stuck at home or stuck in the office, it really helps. So please feel free to check out our website, contact us. If you want to contact me, I'd be more than willing to help you. But we're all here at Cajon to really help you make space for what matters.
And they're also in Facebook, right, Nick? If you're in
Yes, we're also
Facebook,
on
you can also
Facebook,
visit their Facebook.
LinkedIn, Instagram, uh, IG. We have all the social media stuff. So any way that you want to get in contact with us, we can. Cohon.ph or cohonph. Just check us out.
Thank you, Nick. More power to Cajon.ph. Please do send my greetings or regards to your partner, Carlos. You seem that you make a
I
perfect
will.
combination. More growth in Cajon.ph and more customers to serve more space suppliers as well. to connect with the
Yeah.
entire
Thank you so much.
Filipino population. Okay? Once again, to our listeners in this Hello World podcast, Nick Padilla, co-founder and chief people officer, space captain of Kahon.ph. Nick, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Hello, world.
Hi, this is Louis Banta, CEO and Chief Consultant of LJMB or Learning Just Made Better. Thanks for watching my video. To get more videos like this, click subscribe and hit the bell icon below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, comment down below, and share this to others.